Welcome, everybody. Good morning, and welcome to ICAS webinar, Navigating Careers with Support with Mentorship, Wellbeing, and Professional Growth. We are delighted to be with you today. Our event this morning will last just about 1 hour, and we'll be covering information on mentoring, both from the mentor's perspective and the mentee's perspective, and how it's supported the mentee's professional growth and well-being. Before we begin, just a few housekeeping rules for you. You can submit questions at any time throughout the Q&A, and there will be a Q&A facility at the top of your screen where you can submit questions. And you can submit questions anonymously as well. We encourage you to please join the conversation today through the chat box. Again, you can access that at the top of your screen. This will allow you to discuss with fellow attendees about matters that we are covering in this webinar today. We're recording the webinar and we'll make it available on demand for viewing afterwards. So please check your emails after the event for the viewing links. You will also get the LinkedIn profiles for the panelists, so feel free to reach out and connect with them as well. We encourage you to connect with our panelists. Everyone on the webinar is automatically muted, so there is no need to be concerned about any background noise. We're really looking forward to receiving your questions throughout the course of this webinar, and we will try to get through as many as we can. So let's get into it. I am delighted to be joined this afternoon by our panelists. We have Chris Good. Chris is an accountant at GeoActive Limited. We also have Johnny Mills joining us today. Johnny is the founder of Wealth Pilot, which helps professionals to achieve financial freedom. And finally, we have Heather McKay. Heather McKay is a personal coach and therapist and is the founder of Become Aligned. So welcome, Chris, Johnny, and Heather. I'm looking forward to our conversation this morning. So let's get started then. We'll start with a question for Chris. I can see you're still muted. Okay, so Chris, we'll start with a question. Okay, great. So you've been a mentee on the ICAS Mentoring Programme. What was your motivation to sign up as a mentoring program?
Hi there, yeah. So I signed up to the program middle of 2022, so just 2.5 years ago. And I guess I was looking for additional support in my career. I think I've kind of shared I've had quite a lot of health challenges over the years. And really the mentoring scheme has been hugely valuable. I guess I went into it not knowing exactly how it would help me. But at the time that I signed up, I was working for a really small company, which didn't have a huge kind of support network and offering. Not through any fault of its own, just that was just the size of it. That's the resources they had. So the mentoring program with ICAS really allowed me to tap into support that I didn't have accessible to me on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah. Okay, thank you for sharing that. And it's good to know that it was really helpful. And I think I'll ask Johnny the same question as well. Johnny, what was your main motivation for signing up as a mentee for the ICAS program?
Yeah, thanks, Buki. I'm a big believer that if you want to achieve something, a really efficient way of doing it is to ask someone who's done it before. So I wasn't very familiar with the ICAS mentoring program, but I'd heard of it. So I went onto the system and started looking at some profiles of mentors. And I saw Heather's and just thought, I need to speak to this lady. She had followed exactly the path that I was looking to follow, which was, a Big Four background, looking to pursue entrepreneurship. And so, yeah, I submitted a kind of request and we had an introductory meeting just over a year ago today, actually. So it's been a big transformation in the last 12 months for me.
Well, congratulations on that. And it's a good time to bring Heather in then. So you mentored Johnny. How did you how did they come about, and what support were you able to provide? It obviously had a huge impact on him. Can you just share a little bit more around the support that you provided?
Yeah, for sure. So Johnny had put in a mentoring request that came in through the mentoring platform. So it sends me his bio and a bit of background about what type of mentoring he's looking for. And it just seemed like such a good match, just like Johnny said. So we arranged an introductory call, and then it just went from there. And I would say what I think the main support was probably around a couple of things. I think the first one being, because I've been through career changes too, I can kind of relate to the feelings of maybe having some obstacles in the way, some perceived risks. And it was just being able to sort of draw them out and shed a bit of light on them. I think sometimes in mentoring, when you can actually talk through what you think is stopping you, it gives you that almost sort of unbiased view on it. Someone can give you an outside perspective. So I think there was that aspect. And I think secondly, just helping to keep Johnny, taking action, being focused on what's the next step, what's right in front of you. So I would say those two things, and not to say he's completely capable of doing that himself too, but I think maybe with mentoring it just gets you there maybe a bit faster when you've got somebody to sort of keep pushing you.
Yeah, I totally agree with that, because I have had a few career transitions myself, and mentoring gives you speed, because you're speaking to someone that has experience, they have an insight a little further ahead, so they can just share from their experience, and that certainly gives you speed. So let's go back to Johnny then, and let's dig in a little bit into the career change you've had. Tell us about it and how you came about making the change.
Yeah, so my background was at Deloitte. I'd been there for 10 years. I started in audit and had moved into the transactions practice there. And I think I always had a bit of an entrepreneurial itch to scratch, but just hadn't quite made the leap. And it certainly wasn't a linear process, as Heather will attest. We had all kinds of wacky ideas that we were talking about. I was going to set up a film investment fund. I was going to set up a golf sports psychology business. And Heather was very patient and kind of let me come out with all of these ideas and humor me as we went through the process. And eventually we kind of narrowed down from a number of different ideas into what I'm doing today. So that was broadly the process.
Yeah. Well, you're a true entrepreneur then, isn't it? You have full of ideas, and you often need guidance to narrow and choose one. Okay, well, thanks for sharing that. And Heather, let me ask you then, we know from speaking to other mentors that there's a great sense of giving back. Can you share more around what you have gained from being a mentor?
I mean, in terms of what I've gained personally, I think it's reminded me of the value of the experience that I've got and how it can help people when you share that. I think for me as a mum, and people can maybe relate to this, I sort of stepped away from my professional career to have more time for family, and you can in a way lose a bit of your self-worth professionally. You sort of forget the value of what you've got there. So just very personally, it's been rewarding to have mentoring relationships and remind myself that experience and background that we've got is really important. And I think the other side of it too is I'm just so inspired by all the mentoring relationships I've had, looked forward to every call, and just seeing people, growing personally and wanting to make changes in their lives is, keeps inspiring me to do the same as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that resonates with me. The more you help others, the more you help yourself, right? Because in having those conversations, for many of us, our struggles are similar, right? So it's having those conversations also remind you of things that you need to work on. I know in my own mentoring relationships, when I'm speaking to people, I realize actually it's a reminder for me on things that I could also work on. So let's bring in Chris at this point. Chris, how have you seen mentoring tags? On the ICAS platform, you can have tags where you can explain the areas where you can tag and identify the areas that you would like support on, or the areas you would like to be mentored on. How have you seen mentoring tags as a way to address specific challenges such as mental health or career transitions.
Yeah.
I know you talked about that before.
Yeah, so the tags didn't exist when I signed up to the scheme. They're quite a recent development. So by fortune, I ended up with a mentor who was actually well placed to support with what I was looking for. But I definitely see the tags as a really good addition. So I also sit in the Quality, Diversity, Inclusion Committee, and that's the mentoring program is a big part of what they're focusing on, helping to develop that. And the tags really helps to enable that to happen, because if people have got specific areas that they would like help with, the tags can make that happen. So it's definitely something, if I was signing up to the scheme now from scratch, I would utilize. And equally, I mean, I would be happy to use my experiences to help somebody else going forward, but unless I'm aware of what specific aspects they might be looking. And obviously it's done in a safe environment, it's secure, confidential.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yes. So I mean, I was on the ICAS website earlier as well, and just looking at it. So for either whether you a mentee or a mentor, you can select tags. So the mentors will select areas that they feel comfortable to share about, to mentor people on. And equally, the mentees can select areas that they would like to be mentored on. So you have things like allyship, bullying in the workplace, career break, disability, discrimination in the workplace. Imposter syndrome, I'm just reading this out, menopause, mental health and well-being, motherhood and career and caring responsibilities, returning to work after adoption, maternity leave, parental leave, or racial inequalities. So for everyone that's listening that is a member of ICAS, we encourage you to sign up. There is a way that you can gain value or add value. So do check out the mentoring website and see how you could add value to the ICAS community. Over the course of my career, I know I have personally benefited from mentoring. I started my career at UI, and in the early stages as a grad, we were assigned partners. And it's interesting at that point, I would go along to meetings with partners, like business development meetings. And at that point, it was just listening in. But business, and I work as a coach, starting my business, and have just realized that I could reference create business is through business development. But watching the partners at those early stages, I reference that approach now in terms of meeting new people to create business. So the mentoring now, you just never know when later on it will come into play. But let's go back to Johnny and ask Johnny this question. Starting a business, living the corporate world, that the security, the stability, the predictability, and moving into entrepreneurship, that could be, that can bring up doubts, fears. So how has mentoring helped you manage, the feelings of self-doubt or imposter syndrome as you've navigated your transition?
Yeah, it's a good question. Fear is obviously a big hurdle to overcome, and one that I continue to grapple with, and I think everyone does. And I suppose the best way we dealt with it was actually just through frameworks and taking action. So I had this notion that I wanted to go out on my own in some capacity, whatever that meant. And Heather, having been through it, was able to say, well, think about the ideas you might want to pursue in this way, or let's break down this fear and why is that fear there, and actually what you need to do is X, Y, Z. And the benefit of that was turning fear into action, because of course fear just stops people taking action. And so it kind of felt like every session, I would come with a scrambled brain of all the things that I've been doing for the last month or so. And the session was all about actually taking the progress, but also the chaos, for want of a better word, and putting it into some order and turning that kind of fear that can lead us to not doing anything to, okay, these are the 3 things I'm going to do. And, next time we speak, you will have done those. And that's how we kept the momentum going throughout the kind of 6 to 12 months. It feels like small steps, but actually when you look back over a year, you can make huge progress. So I think that's the key thing that I took away in terms of dealing with that fear.
Yeah. As you were speaking, what comes to my, is about turning fear into focus, right? You're taking all those things, that bring up doubt, and you're channeling into something more productive, and that's why we make progress, isn't it? The fear will always be there, and as someone that runs a business, I certainly identify with that. It will always be there, but it's around just channeling it. So to our audience, I really want to encourage you to ask questions. Please make use of the chat and ask your questions, and towards the end of our hour together, we will answer those questions. So Heather, let's bring you in again. We know, there's increasing mental health challenges with all the stresses that we're all going through now in the world. How do you approach topics around mental health and self-care, and ensuring that you are providing a supportive space for mentees to really share how they feel?
Mm-hmm. And it's something that hasn't come up yet within my mentoring here, but it's certainly something that comes up a lot in the other lines of work that I do. And I've had mental health training, and the biggest thing I would say is just to listen to somebody and provide that safe space for them, listen to them without judgment, and remember the importance of just allowing somebody to be able to talk. As a mentor, you're not there to try and fix things or come up with answers, and that's not necessarily what somebody's looking for from you anyway. So listening supportively, and checking in to see what kind of support system your mentee has in their network, their friends and family, what activities they do, how their well-being is supported in that way. And I think it's important too with mental health just to know the boundaries, recognize when actually you may need to refer somebody for further support, and sort of don't step outside of that, but very much just be there and just provide that safe space for them, I would say.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And it could be mental health challenges, but it could also be even more difficult topics. How do you navigate difficult topics that come up in mentorship? And it's not always around having answers, right? It's just around helping people to navigate and help them identify other places where they could get support. I think that's really important. Thank you for sharing that. Chris, let me come to you, because you mentioned already that you are part of the ED&I committee. Can you tell us a little bit more about the committee and what made you want to get involved?
Yeah, so I joined the committee just over a year ago, and I mean, the purpose of the committee is to ensure that equality and diversity is at the heart of everything that ICAS is doing. From my perspective, it's allowed me to use my experiences and challenges that I've faced in my career and try and feel that there's a kind of meaning behind that and that I'm putting it to good use, and shaping decisions that the committee is making, which in turn is then influencing what ICAS is doing. A good example of that is ICAS has got a support assistance program for members who are going through times of mental difficulties, any other sort of challenges. Now, that used to just be available to people who were working in practice, and that's just in the process of now being rolled out so that all members can access it. So I was able to feed in that my experiences. I was working in a small company, private sector. I had limited support, as I said earlier, due to the size of the company, but I also couldn't tap into the ICAS program because I wasn't working in practice. So it's my interest was in, say, trying to use my kind of health challenges go back right to the start of my career and before that. So to actually be able to use that in a beneficial way has been really good in terms of helping my own confidence, which has then in turn helped with my career progression. And yeah, so now my mentor was he became president of ICAS during my time getting mentored by him. But I didn't know that when I got into the relationship. But he was very good in terms of giving me a platform and getting me connections within ICAS to kind of share my experiences. and somebody who's kind of hidden away from networking and getting involved in ICAS actively for the past 20 odd years. It was quite a big change, and so it's helped to be able to actually use that in a beneficial way. And the EDI committee helps hugely with that.
Absolutely. I really like that example of inclusion. The fact that you're coming from a smaller organization, because inclusion is just all about everything, isn't it? Having that diverse perspective, having different views. So even people who work in certain spaces could be excluded unintentionally.
Yeah.
And I think that's really one of the real benefits of mentoring. This is where allyship can really come in as well. Stepping how to mentor people who don't who have different experiences to us. We can really add a real value to them. When I look back at my career, I'm the first in my family to have a corporate to go and work in the corporate role. My older brother is a doctor. My sister is a nurse. So they all worked in the health setting and starting corporate life. I was quite, I was shocked. I didn't know what to expect. And a lot of the support I got around managing my career, moving up the ladder, knowing what to do, what not to do, it came through informal networks. Like I never quite had a formal mentor. There were times when I would go to ICAS meetings. I worked in London. ICAS would hold regular events in London then, and I would go and I'll meet more experienced members. And I received a lot of free career advice that way. So it wasn't a structured mentoring thing, but actually just being exposed to people for that ahead, it makes a real big difference. And so I really encourage people to tap into the power of mentoring, use the ICAS platform, but also actually other ICAS events as well, networking events and other events that are happening that you can go and meet other members who are at different stages of their career and just have conversations. I'm always I walk away with a lot of value when I meet people who are working in different using their CA qualifications in different ways that I can learn from. Okay, so Johnny, let's when it comes again talking about the confidence, which is one of the key areas that Heather has supported with. Could you share some specific ways that Heather has helped you gain confidence during your transition?
Yeah. So the big thing is obviously having someone slightly objective or fully objective to kind of challenge you. And it's one thing if your wife or your mum says, yeah, you're on the right track, keep going, but just having that sort of more objective person, and I felt like we built up a really good open discussion, and I felt really confident that if I was barking out the wrong tree, Heather would tell me. And the inverse of that is when I'd be having fears about, okay, what if this goes wrong, or how do I broach this? And a lot of it was about actually, as Heather alluded to before, reaffirming the skills that we have as CAs. We sometimes, I think, neglect to remember the skills that come with the qualifications, with the organizations we've worked for and the clients we've worked with. And it was just kind of remembering, actually, the world is going to continue. Things will go wrong. They could go catastrophically wrong, but things will turn out all right. And actually having that third party kind of calm voice of reason, if you like, was just such a powerful thing to give me confidence then to focus, as I said before, on taking action. So how can I actually make what I really want to happen? And that was huge, I think, in terms of the confidence side of things.
Thanks for sharing that. I think confidence is one of those pillars. And I think you never had grow needing more confidence. I've found that wherever you've just changed, levels, your business is at a certain point now. When you move to the next level, you may need to increase your confidence again, because now you're dealing with new challenges. That's what I've found. Every level you go through, you almost have to rebuild your confidence again for that level, but you're not starting from like ground zero. You're just building on top. So thanks for sharing that. So Heather, could you share a little bit more around what inspired you to get into the mentoring program? And yes, that would be good.
Yeah. So I'm qualified as a life coach. So when I saw the mentoring program come about, being advertised, it just felt like a great way to give a bit back and use those skills. And I think because it's specific to CAs as well, I just felt like there's that common ground there. And like I said, I have made career changes myself, so I feel like I can relate to where a mentee is coming from if they're looking to make some kind of change. So yeah, that was mostly why I wanted to get into it. And just I suppose a curious person. I just love meeting people and hearing their stories and being part of their journey. So selfishly too, it was probably from that point of view.
Yeah. And as you say that, a question that comes to mind is, if you have someone that's listening and they're a little bit hesitant about signing up as a mentor, what would you say to them?
I think if it's something that you feel you want to do, then that's probably a sign that you should do it. I think we can put, again, like those obstacles or expectations on ourselves about what we think it means to do a certain role. But actually, if you're the kind of person that just wants to support somebody, listen to them, help them navigate through a path, then I would say do it.
Yeah. Okay, so if anyone's listening, you have experience, you have insights, sign up for the ICAS Mentoring Program. And I'll say the same thing to you, Chris. What would you say to ICAS members who might be hesitant to join the mentoring program?
The main thing I would say is I think you've got nothing to lose by a bit like Heather says, if you've got a feeling that you want to try it, then I just think there's nothing to be lost by trying, because at the end of the day, if it doesn't work out, either you can leave it or you can try a different mentor. I've had 2 different mentors in the time, and both have brought me completely different things. I've benefited hugely from both relationships in different ways. And like I said earlier, the benefits I've got from it are things that I never went into expecting. So I would definitely say go in with an open mind in terms, and that's what kind of consistent with what Johnny said as well. So yeah, I just think there's a huge amount to be gained. I mean, there's not many places you can get access to such a wealth of knowledge and experience free of charge, and also like Heather said, it's a safe space to share. You've got time that's really time devoted to you. So if you've got a 2-hour session, it's there. Also at work, even if you're somewhere supportive, there's still time pressures and conflicting demands and priorities, whereas it really is the mentoring's time dedicated to you. So yeah, I just feel that there's a huge amount to gain, and try it if you've got any doubts. It's very flexible. Like I say, you can change mentors if you want to change, or you can have more. I believe you can have more than one mentor at a time if you've got specific things you want to work on or want help with. So it's very flexible. Yeah.
I really hear you on that point around how you can have different mentors, and you can use your mentors for different things. And I know, in the past, as a Black woman working, in many spaces where I was the only, there weren't many people that looked like me. I have found that sometimes I have needed to talk to someone that looked like me just for reassurance. I remember there was a period when I was much earlier on in my career. I'd get into work on Monday and people would be sharing what they did at weekends. I would have spent most of my weekends in church. But I would be hesitant to share that because everyone around me were talking about other things, what they did, which was very different. I felt awkward sharing that. And I remember taking it to a mentor, another Black leader in the organization, and I spoke to him about this. And he just encouraged me to share. He shared his own experience. He was also a Christian, and he shared his faith openly. And up to now, I still, on LinkedIn, I share about my faith. People come to me like, "Okay, why are you so comfortable sharing your faith?" Because they feel hesitant. But sometimes seeing someone do what you would like to do, or someone that you identify, can really help. So I'm certainly I encourage people, look for what do you need, right? What do you need, and who can support you? Who do you feel open to share challenges with? Then go with that person. And equally too, I'll say this as well. I also sometimes people would also approach me and ask, all right, well, as a Black professional, do I have to have a Black mentor? Like, no, you don't have to have a Black mentor. Anyone could mentor you. It's really around what are your needs and who do you think is best placed to support you. So it's really just depends on the individual, on what they need. So be open, reach out to who you think will support you. Great. Okay, we're nearly rounding up, and we'll be looking at some of the questions in the Q&A, but I wanted to ask Johnny one last question. And I know you've spoken a lot, but if you could just reflect, what would you say has been the most valuable takeaway that you got from your mentoring relationship?
It's a difficult question because we were working together for over a year, and as I said before, it was a huge transformation for me. So I learned a huge amount throughout the process. I think if I were to distill it down to one thing, it was about trusting myself. So, having been through all of this change, and there have been serious highs and also serious lows, it's kind of reaffirmed that actually I was on the right track all along, and I don't think I could have got there actually without Heather's support. But coming out the other side, that's the one thing that I really want to hold on to. Just trust yourself, trust the skills that you've got. If you've got an idea, it's probably a decent one, so go with it and pursue it. And that trust is so valuable.
Thank you for sharing that. Thank you. That resonates with me definitely. That affirmation, and I think I like what you said earlier as well, that your family, your friends can tell you they believe in you, but when you're actually someone that you don't really know, you've just come into a new relationship with, they're sharing their ideas, you experience, they have insights, and they validate. That can be really, really, really powerful. And it reminds me of a time when in my career as well, it was at EY when I worked in the area of tax, but I was quite interested in tax accounting, and I wanted to specialize in tax accounting and, make that as a key technical area that was my strength. And I was speaking to a partner at the time and telling her, oh, this is what I wanted to do. And then she said to me, yes, you could really do that. Maybe one day you will head the tax accounting team. I wasn't even thinking that far. But the fact that I shared that and someone quite senior who I respected told me I could one day lead the team, that was really empowering. So yeah, I think mentors play a really key role in empowering us. Otherwise, we can stay limited, right? We stay confined in what we know. So thank you so much, Heather, Chris, and Johnny, for sharing your experience. We will now go and start answering some questions that have been submitted. So please go ahead and share your questions. So we'll go to the first one, and I'm going to ask any of you to answer this. How can someone find the right mentor for overcoming challenges like imposter syndrome or mental health conditions? Is it better to find one mentor who can support all my needs, or have multiple mentors for different areas? And maybe we could have, maybe Edda can share her experience as a mentor, and then we can have Chris or Johnny share their experience from the perspective of a mentee.
Yeah, I think as a mentor, to answer that, I think you can absolutely have different mentors to support different needs. And I've had people that I'm mentoring through the CA program who are also in different coaching programs for different skills as they're going through whatever they're working through with their career change. So yes, I would say yes to that. The more mentoring, the better.
You can't have too much of a good thing.
Yeah.
I think. Okay.
I suppose the only thing I would add to that is, it's a one-to-one relationship, and it has to be a two-way thing. So you don't want to stretch yourself too thin in terms of having so many mentors that you can't actually, really dedicate yourself to the process, and actually, having one relationship that you really, really invest in is definitely probably more powerful than having, 3 or 4 mentors that you kind of half engage with.
That's true.
Yeah, I would agree with that as well. Yeah.
Totally.
I definitely see the benefit of having more than one, but yeah, too many could be a challenge as well.
Yes. It's like having too many advisors, isn't it? They can then all be saying, right? I remember there was one thing I heard, every strategy works if you walk it long enough, right? So if you've got 3-4 strategies, 3-4 mentors giving you 4 different strategies to build your business, well, you're going to struggle, right? Whereas if you focus on one, then you'll make rest faster. Okay, so this question is coming for Heather. What has been the most rewarding aspect of supporting others as a mentor? You might have a little, if you could just shed more light on that.
By far the most rewarding thing about mentoring people is seeing them achieving their goals. You can get to the end of a mentoring relationship and look back at where you started, and just seeing people get to the point they wanted to get to and the journey they've been through to get there. I personally just find that so rewarding, just seeing them on the path that they want to be on.
Okay. Thanks for sharing that. And a question has come in around how do you, whether you can be a mentor and a mentee at the same time. And the answer is yes, you can be both, because even mentors need mentoring, right? Mentors still need support because they are still growing. So you can be a mentor and a mentee at the same time. You just need to register separately for both. And also there is, so there was the question earlier around how, I'm just bringing it. So the question earlier around when someone was asking around imposter syndrome, I also want to emphasize that there are mentoring tags. So if you're someone that is looking for support around mental health, around imposter syndrome, around menopause, there's so many areas there. Do go into the mentoring website and see the tags that are available there. And even if there's not a tag for the area you want to be mentored in, you can always put it in the text area, so your potential mentors can see what you're looking for support with. Okay, so moving on with more questions. So someone's asked, I would be interested in hearing a bit more about the process around mentoring. Aspects such as frequency of meetings, expectations on each party, a little bit more around, maybe John, you can share what worked particularly well for you in your mentoring relationship with Heather.
Yeah, I think the answer is it totally depends on you and your mentor. But for us, we picked a monthly schedule. So we typically had about 4 or 5 weeks between sessions. And for me, that was really important because I actually needed time to take the actions that we'd been through. And so anything shorter than that would just have been unproductive. And that's kind of it in terms of the logistics. We tried to keep it, kind of structured, but also with enough fluidity that we could kind of speed things up and slow things down at the relevant moments. But yeah, it really depends on what you're trying to achieve. My timeline was quite long. It was a kind of 6 to 12 month goal. Some people might be on shorter timelines for a quicker goal. So it really depends on the individual situation.
Okay. Thanks
yeah,
for that.
I can add to that if you like as well. It certainly worked for us that we just agreed sort of an hour's call once a month, and it was perfect for the pace that Johnny was working at. And I've had other mentoring relationships where it lasted a bit longer. It spanned over 2 years. So we started off with monthly calls, and then as the person was actually getting closer to where they wanted to be, it became more of just a check-in. It ended up 6 weekly calls and then every couple of months until we finished that mentoring relationship. So it really does just depend on, what the person's working on and I suppose the frequency of the support they need.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And I guess it's needless to say, but I'll still say it anyway, that it doesn't have to be in person. It could be virtual, it could be by phone, and so you can mentor. And I suppose as well, you can Obviously ICAS is UK based, but you could have CAs that are based outside the country and they could still mentor you. I know as a coach,
Yeah.
I work with people globally. Yeah. Was
Uh,
that John or Chris? Okay, go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, I've got that's my experience as my so Clive that's been mentoring the last couple of years. He's based in Zurich, so the first year we'd never met face to face. It was just online, and then we met at one of the ICAS dinners, and yeah, so it works, as you say, it works equally as well remotely nowadays.
Yeah. So maybe there's someone that's thinking of a relocation. Think about the country or city you want to relocate to, and go on the ICAS website and see if there's a CA that is based in there, in the city that you could have a conversation with. Okay, so going down these questions, so how do you come to terms with sidestepping, going into a completely different field and starting again? I think this is for Jenny, and I could shed the light on this as well. And this person is expanding on their question. They say, maybe my question is, where do you find the courage, keep sane and positive when you don't necessarily know what the end goal is?
Good question. How long have you got? So I think knowing the goal is really the biggest part of it, because once you've got that goal, you can then take action to get there. And with anything, whether it's starting a business or whether trying to get promoted or whether trying to find a new job, there will inevitably be rejection and down times and points where your confidence is shot to pieces. And it's actually having that goal really clearly defined that keeps you going. And I was checking my notes. I think I said earlier from our first session, which was on the 15th of January, so just over a year ago, and I've written down, if I'm still employed, we failed. Because that was the goal. It was to set something up, and so having those very specific kind of outlines and milestones and targets meant that even when times got tough, it was so clear in my mind what we were working towards. That's what really kept me going. It was such a big question. Is there anything that I've not covered? Anything you'd like me to go into more detail on, Buki?
So you covered the point around the goal. So I think it's important to have that goal in mind. So the other part is, where do you find the courage to keep sane and positive? I guess even when things are going not as expected.
So there's a great quote by Brene Brown, which is, we can either have comfort or courage, but we can't have both at the same time. And so it was really reading quotes like that. I used to read quotations like that every single morning, just to remind myself, why am I doing this? And in the long term, this is really going to be worth it. So it's just about getting through these tough times. So it was just about that inner drive to get to that goal, as we said before. And ultimately, that's the choice: courage or comfort. And it was courage.
Yeah. That resonates with me, because I also made the transition about 5 years ago now, where I worked in tax. I'm a CA, specialized in tax, and I transitioned to becoming a leadership coach. And I think the important thing is, a career leadership coach, you have to have the end goal in mind. I left work in February 2020, and we know what happened the following month. Everything crashed. And I remember one day coming down, waking up early in the morning when the country had gone into lockdown, and I just thought, well, I have given up my job. This has to work. And that was a conversation I had with myself, that this has to work. So I had a commitment that this thing must work. Then now, okay, how do I make it work? It's not going to work by magic. It's finding the resources that can help you. So it's the mentoring, is a reaching out. And in doing that, you then realize you are confronted with your own fears. So dealing with rejection. Not everybody you reach out to for support will respond to you, but that's absolutely fine. If you're committed to your goal, you keep going. I always say, like, entrepreneurship, running your home business, and even this also applies even if you work in the corporate world, right? To get to the very top of your career, you do have to really work on your own your mindset, your emotional intelligence, because that's really going to be critical to succeeding. Beyond the technical skills is that personal aspect, how we're growing as a person, how we're able to be resilient, how we're able to stay focused. That is really what gets us through. So to that person, when you know your question, how do I find the courage? I think you choose courage. You make a decision, you get clear on the goal, declare this is what I want for myself, and then you commit to it and you get the support, right? I mean, this is something that's always helped me in my own journey, which is the fact that I know what the end goal, I know what I'm aiming for, where I'm going, but I don't know how I'm going to get there. Right? It's like you're setting on a journey, you know, you put the postcode in your sat nav, but who knows? There might be traffic on the road, there might be an accident, and you have to go on a detour. That's absolutely fine. Let's not be focused on the how, more on just on the journey. The destination, the how will reveal itself, and that has always guided me. Okay, so we can do more questions. So this is an interesting one. How do you manage the mentoring relationship over time? Do you set objectives for a period of time for each meeting? Into more of the granular detail of how you actually manage a relationship over time. Okay.
Would you like me to
that-
start?
Yes. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I think the onus is really on the mentee to make the most of your mentor as much as possible. So for us, we had that very clear goal that I said before. And then we built a roadmap, and Heather was really, really helpful in terms of helping me set clear milestones over, I think it was a 6-month period to start with. And then breaking it down again, then we would have, you know, what do we need to do in order to hit that first month milestone? Okay, we're going to do X, Y, Z. And then every meeting was about, okay, what did we do in the last month? And what are we going to do in the next month? So in terms of the logistics, it was very much like, this is the long-term goal, working back, we need to do this. And then in the next week, we're going to do these 3 things. It's actually also a really good question about how our relationship has evolved, because I suppose one of my reflections is at the beginning, it was more of a one-way relationship in the sense that I was probably gaining a lot more than Heather was. But as I've kind of gone through the process, I've also started learning things through my own business that, you know, if I see things that I think might be helpful for Heather's business, I've started sharing those. So actually, it's become, I would say, a much more kind of two-way relationship in the sense that we're both sharing learnings through both of our businesses. And yeah, I think we both intend to continue that because it's just really valuable and interesting and enjoyable to continue like that.
Yeah. I like that you shared that, because that again, that is really important. That it's not just the mentor that is giving and the mentee that is taking, right? The mentee has experience, they have professional experience, life experiences, you know, maybe even a social network that they could share with their mentor. So it's both are giving into the relationship. And I wonder if you could build a little bit on that as well. As a mentee, and also Chris, I'm going to ask you this as well. As a mentee, what are some of the the attributes or mindset that is important for you to come into the mentoring relationship with, so that you can maximize it and get the most benefit out of it?
Yeah. I think I said earlier, going in with an open mind to what you might get out of it. Because, like I say, what I've ended up getting out of it is far different than what I might have gone in expecting. I guess willing to be vulnerable and open up. And of course, that takes a little bit of time to build a relationship with a person and to feel that you trust them and that you're confident to share things. In my case, that happened quite quickly. But I think you do have, well, I think there's a benefit to being willing to be honest and open up. And I think Johnny said as well that the onus is on the mentee to kind of drive. So it's very much my agenda. What I want to cover is so I take ownership and responsibility for deciding what areas I want to work on. So I think you have to be quite clear about that from the start as well, the start of sessions. And also, I think at the start, the point was made that it can be challenging as well, because sometimes the mentor might kind of play devil's advocate, and you might be challenged with things that are a bit uncomfortable. So being willing to sit with that and be challenged is something that I struggled with probably at the start more, but I've got used to and really see the benefits of that. So a willingness to be made to feel uncomfortable and to be challenged is also helpful.
I like that because if it's all cozy, yeah, you're probably not being challenged, and there's more growth that you may not be tapping into. Yes. Yeah. So the relationship can get difficult. So the willingness of the mentor to be open and direct and honest, and equally for the mentee to be able to receive that.
Yeah, and I can echo the comments that were made earlier about it's definitely a reciprocal arrangement, and I very much went into it thinking that I didn't have a lot to offer, but I was the one that was going to be gaining. But I could feel quite quickly that it was a reciprocal arrangement, and that then gave me more confidence to share and to contribute.
Yeah. And the other thing as well is certainly when I look back at my mentoring relationship, that sometimes even your mentor might give you advice that you don't necessarily agree with, that there shouldn't be any pressure to always go ahead with it, right? It's a relationship where you ask questions, you challenge, and if you do disagree or you disagree, then you don't have to do it. Because sometimes I think the pressure to be compliant, like, oh, what if my mentor says something that I don't want? Then I'm going to feel bad and I may not want to see them again. And then you start hiding and ducking and all of that. And it's just not it's not necessary. It's not required. As you said, that being open, being willing to hear the difficult messages is also being open and willing to say no when you don't agree with what they've shared with you. Heather, I wonder if you could share your own experience from a mentor's perspective. What are some of the good attributes that a mentor should bring into the relationship to maximize the mentoring relationship?
Yeah, and it's so interesting just hearing what Chris and Johnny have said, because from my side, it just mirrors exactly what they were saying as a mentee. Like, I would say as a mentor, the key thing is just to remember to have trust in that person. I believe that everybody really knows the right answers within them deep down, and your job as a mentor is to get those answers drawn out, to help them make the decisions that are right for them. So it's not a case of dishing out advice. It's listening more than you speak as much as you can, but also asking questions, making sure that you're properly understanding what the person's telling you, because they are telling you what's exactly going on and what's important to them. So, taking that time to kind of summarize and say, am I right in thinking that this is what you're telling me? Because you don't want to take them off on a different direction. They should be steering it, and it should be about them. And also not being afraid to ask those challenging questions. If somebody's saying to you, I can't do this, I just couldn't possibly, then feel safe to go back to them and say, well, tell me why not? What's the worst that could happen? Let's actually explore that. And I think as well, just helping to keep your mentee focused on what's next. What is the next step? Because I think motivation and inspiration, we need that. We need all those ideas, but action is what actually creates change. So, even though the path can sort of go off maybe in different directions, if you're still taking action and taking that motion, you are ultimately going to get to, I was going to say you're going to get to the goal you wanted in the first place. It may not be. You may actually end up somewhere else, but ultimately it'll be the right thing for you if you've gone through that process.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing your perspective on that. We have one last question here. Can you mentor students or just members? And the answer is yes. So both students and members can be mentored. If you're an ICAS student, please feel free to sign up for the mentorship program as well. So, well, thank you to our panelists, Heather and Johnny. This has been an interesting discussion, and I'm sure our audience have benefited from listening to your experiences of mentoring and being mentored. So we're almost out of time, and it would be great if you could leave us a rating for today's webinar. There will be a short poll, a short question poll appearing on the screen now. So please complete that. And also, there are some ICAS events that are coming up. Please sign up to ICAS events. ICAS, as a member of ICAS puts up interesting events to help with your personal and professional development. So do sign up to the events. To thank the panelists once again for sharing their experience, for sharing openly and transparently with us. Thank you to everyone that has joined us on this webinar today, and we hope that it has been helpful to you. Thank you very much, and until next time. Goodbye.